Here's a question from Kevin B. This is gonna be an interesting one. We've had to kind of make some changes and redact a couple things with this, so bear with me, and hopefully we'll still be able to get the point across. So, a certain former Sonic comic writer recently announced and clarified that he's open to licensing his Archie characters, and I quote, "After giving the matter much thought, I've decided I'm going to make my characters available for licensing. I'm working out the details and there will be contracts involved. Stay tuned." Considering this is the big race that Archie fans have been waiting years for, does this finally open the door in seeing these characters return in some manner, such as the IDW comics? Does this mean Sega could allow IDW to bring the Freedom Fighters back as well, since they're associated with those other writers' characters? And even if they couldn't be involved in the main IDW series, what about spin-off books, since IDW has licensed out other franchises to conclude stories from other publishers? I realize that's a loaded question, but hopefully you can provide an answer to any of this.
So, let me preface all this by saying I am a freelance contractor. My views and opinions are my own. I do not represent, in any legally binding sense, IDW, Sega, or anyone else who has ever contracted me. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. This disclaimer brought to you by Panic! First off, the Freedom Fighters are not connected to this. They are cartoon characters first, and that is their primary saving grace. The issue with them is that Sega doesn't want us referencing old cartoon material. So that's no Freedom Fighters, that's no Breezy or Adventures of, that's not Sonya and Manic, that's no Sonic S-Cast. I know you guys are going to miss Chris Thorndike, but so it goes. No Boom, just none of that. So they are not associated with any of the Archie stuff. That's apples and oranges. The Archie stuff is derivative of that. As for the question itself, I don't think it's a question so much as if they will, but a question of would they want to? Because comics are an expensive and complicated process. And to license out something to add to a licensed book is adding more costs and another degree of production. And you run the risk of licensor A not jiving with the principal licensor being Sega. So if Sega says, okay, we would be fine with character X showing up, but they have to be changed in such a way to fit, and licensor B says, no, you have to keep it to my standards, there's an impasse there. And now we're trying to appease two different licensors to do one Sonic book, and that's not practical. And again, would it be worth the money? Let us take, for example, Elias. I'm going to bring him up because he's one of my favorites. I freaking love Elias. There's a reason why he was Agent King during the Sonic universe. Elias is my boy. Elias's function in the story was to remove Sally's obligation to the throne. Yes, he had other stories and other stuff going on, but his purpose in the book overall was just that. He was a supporting character to a supporting character. Sally existed to coincide with Sonic. She was the important one in this mix. She brought a new dynamic to Sonic. She brought a new setting for Sonic, which he didn't really have back in the early 90s. And it's her name and her kingdom and her fight that are all the important parts. She's off the table because of what I said before. The cartoons are off limits. So if you remove Sally, you're also removing her kingdom and her father and all that. So Elias becomes the prince of nothing and brother to no one. And he serves no purpose other than to just be Elias. And that isn't, in my mind, that isn't enough. Even if you take him back to like his original incarnation as this wandering, adventuring prince, which I kind of wish he had stuck to because that was the most fun, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. If you dial him back to that, The idea of an adventuring prince is fine. That's a cool idea. But we can make someone new and not have to pay a licensing fee and wait for someone to approve it and add all that extra stuff. We could just have, here's the new character, the adventuring prince. And, he wouldn't be a squirrel, obviously. He wouldn't be related to Sally, obviously. But he would accomplish the same thing. If we do get the Freedom Fighters back, we don't necessarily need any of the pre-reboot stuff to come with it. Post-reboot, we had Sally and we had King Acorn, because those were both stuff from the cartoon, and that was fine. The supporting characters don't need an extended supporting cast. And if we wanted to get let's do a fun head thing, and okay, we get the Freedom Fighters back, but it's deemed that there's just too much cool stuff going on to be contained in the Sonic book, so we get our own Freedom Fighter book. Let's dream big here.
Yes.
In that case, Sally is the main character, obviously. Freedom Fighters are her supporting cast, and we could expand upon her family if we needed to. And we don't need to go back to what came before. We could give her a sister. We could give her 2 brothers. We could give her 5 younger brothers, and they all drive her crazy. We could give her 5 older brothers, and they all treat her like the baby, and it drives her nuts, and that's why she likes Sonic, because he lets her just be her. We could do any number of things, and it doesn't cost us anything extra, and we don't have to jump through more hoops to get things approved. So that's where I'm sitting, thinking as someone who has to create this stuff and get it approved and go through all the checks and stuff. I could be wrong. If such a scenario came up, maybe IDW would want to play ball. I can't speak for them. I don't know what their budget is. I don't know what their thinking is ultimately. It wouldn't make reprints any easier, because most of the previous creators all say that they have claim. So you would be working out deals with multiple people, possibly paying multiple licensing fees and going through multiple licensing approvals. And that's going to cut into any profits that a reprint book would have. So it's certainly an avenue that is open. And you know what? If the people above me want to do business, that's none of my business. I just write the darn things. But from where I am, I don't see it making a lot of business sense. Sure, there's a lot of fan love for it, but we're talking about a series that hasn't seen print in years, catering to a very small section of the fan base, because the IDW book is now international. There are the hardcore fans around the world who have an idea of who some of these are, but as much as I love the Archie series, and being able to contribute to that tapestry was one of the biggest highlights of both my career and my life, realistically speaking, it's not that big a part of the franchise overall. So
it's
when
not
looking at,
go ahead.
When looking at the characters and assets in question, you have to ask, what is their importance to Sonic today? And if you have to change a lot to make it fit, does it really justify the cost and the time spent to get access to them? I don't have an answer for that. I have my personal opinion, but that and a dime will buy you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Man, that phrase is outdated. You need like a